All right, Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with Connor Lewis. Connor, welcome. So awesome to have you on the show with us today, man.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm grateful to be here, my friend.
I'll tell you, I've been looking forward to this because the way we met is really cool. We actually met through your mom.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, man, you have such a huge fan in your mom. And and for me, being the father of seven kids myself, that I'm incredibly proud of. Man, it does my heart good to see that, and your mom, man, she's really good at talking you up. And when she was telling me, yeah, you should really consider having Connor on the show. And so then you and I got to connect and have a conversation, get to know each other a little bit. And I'm like, yep, Carla was right. I definitely need to get Connor on the show. And so
Yeah.
here we are, man. And and so, Carla, if you happen to be listening to this, thank you so much for introducing Connor and I, because it's just been really cool. We've only started getting to know each other, and it's already been a great ride. It's already been a great journey. And so I'm
That's
looking forward to this. And so we'll just start off by I'll just ask you, what are you doing right now? What are you doing right now in your life? What's the role that you hold right now? And just tell us a little bit about that real quick.
yeah, yeah. Thanks, Kevin. I work with a company called Southwestern Consulting. We're
Okay.
based in Nashville, Tennessee, and we've been around since 1855, which is older than the light bulb. And so what we do, man, is we help salespeople, sales professionals, sales leaders implement habits around skills, systems, and motivations. And man, we love working with high level people that are really doing a good job, but always know that some outside perspective, a little bit of accountability, they can take things to the next level.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I have had the benefit of talking with you before, and so I know some of your backstory. And man, you've got a fast. And then this is the cool thing about entrepreneurs is every entrepreneur always has a really interesting backstory. And so I want to hear some of your backstory. And even right before we hit the record button today, you were talking about growing up on a farm and stuff. And I grew up working on a farm, and so I know what that's like. And but then you got into auto sales and stuff.
Yeah.
And so just talk about some of that experience and kind of, because that's all what led you to where you're at right here, right now and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Geez, Kevin. Yeah, so like you said, I grew up on a grain farm in Northwest Ohio, and that has definitely impacted a lot of what I have going on and the values that I carry into my role now. I also grew up wrestling, started wrestling at a very young age when I was 5,
Oh,
and did
wow.
that all
Okay.
the
That
way
is
to
young.
yeah, all the way to my first year of college. And so taking that work ethic and what it takes to be successful in both of those things and carry them up into my adulthood. Um, I started in a car dealership detailing cars,
Okay.
and we had a gentleman walk out in the middle of a busy Saturday afternoon at the car dealership, and our general sales manager came back and he said, "Hey, Connor, you want to come sell cars?" And I said, "We can talk about it. When do you think would be a good time for me to start?" And he said, "I have a desk up here for you right now."
Right
So I got
now.
thrown to the wolves. Yeah, I got thrown to the wolves and started doing that, and everything was great. That I started in Northwest Ohio at a Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram store,
Okay.
and threw a dart at the map, ended up right outside of Nashville down in Franklin, and started working at a Nissan store there. And I was there for 5 years, started selling, worked my way up to a sales manager, internet sales manager, and then general sales manager. And then had some family stuff, had our second child, stepped back down into just a sales role so I could focus on my family.
Okay.
And man, it just ultimately everything that is I've been through, man, God has kind of just led me to Southwestern Consulting. I've been a client for, man, 10 years.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah,
Okay.
with my own coach.
Yep.
And so I know the people, I know the programs, I believe in it, I feel it, I've seen what it's done for my life, and now I've ended up here, and I'm grateful to be here, and I get to have conversations like this now.
Yeah. So, and candidly, you've been kicking it there. And so you've been doing
Yeah,
pretty doggone well there.
yeah, yeah. Things have been going great.
Yeah. And so what inspires you most about this role that you're in now and the work you're doing now?
It's a good question. Like I said, I've seen what it's done firsthand for me,
Uh-huh.
both professionally and personally. And man, I want other people to feel that and see what it does. Man, what we do works and how our coaches pour into people and the concepts that we've had since our founders started the company. This isn't something that we've made up last year, last 5 years. This is something that's, a long time of cultivating and growing and adapting, and what we do works, man. And I just want to introduce it to everybody that is open-minded to it and willing to have a conversation around it to show them how it can change their life.
Yeah. And what a cool spot to be in for you, having been a client for 10
Yeah.
years and
Yeah.
experienced what the value is of what they do there, you know.
Yes.
And so you've got a very unique perspective in that regard that a lot of other people might not have and stuff. And and like I would not consider myself to be like this sales guy per se, but I love talking with entrepreneurs who are just making a big impact, who are just inspiring to me. And if there's a way that I can help them through using my God-given gifts and abilities and stuff, man, I mean, you know what? I'm certainly going to have that conversation with them. I would be doing them a disservice if I didn't have that conversation with them. And I felt that way, that I was able to help them and didn't offer to do that, you know.
Yeah.
And what a cool spot to come from, you know. And
Yes.
so with where you're at right now, well, I'll tell you what, yeah, so with where you're at right now, Connor, what's your vision for this going forward?
Man, my main vision is pretty simple, Kevin. It's I want to honor God, I want to lead my family well, and I want to pour into the people that are placed in front of me. I'm focused on activity, right? And just everybody that's placed in front of me to somehow, some way pour into them, whether that is on a business level, right? To where I can help them, I can impact their career, or whether I met with a young man the other day who has been in the car business and kind of going through some of the struggles that I was going through. And we just sat down and had a cup of coffee and talked about life and career, and for him to have somebody on the other side of the table that can thoroughly understand and been through
Mhm.
it, right? To no matter where somebody's at in life, I just want to see people
Yeah. You
really
just meet
see
them right where they're at, you know.
exactly.
and and we can empathize with them because especially like in a situation like that where probably a lot of what he's going through, you're like, oh man, I remember that. you know?
Yes, yes,
And so you can totally feel, that's just not a conversation, that's like, that is really an engaging thing because it's so you can feel it, it's visceral,
Mhm.
and that's a whole nother level of communication right there,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so, well, okay, so now that we've got a little bit of context set here, I want to switch gears just a little bit. And I want to start talking about the relationship side of this. And so
Okay.
I'll start off asking you, have you ever been introduced or met a person or persons that completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience, Connor, around this topic of relationships.
Yeah. Man, the first people that come to my mind, there's four
Okay.
that have really left a real impact on my life. The first one is my grandpa.
Okay.
Um, Even just as a young child, of watching him, the importance of taking care of what you have, whether it's your family, growing up on a farm, your equipment, just the importance of hard work, character, doing the right thing when nobody's looking, right? And then trickle down to my dad, who has taught me what it's like to be a man, right? To go to take care of your family, to provide for your wife, to protect your wife, to do all the things that we're called to do as men. And he's always held me accountable. He's always there that I can call and talk to him, right? I talk to my dad often, but once a day, likely. And then professionally, my coach that I've had for the last 10 years, the things that we've walked through and how he's helped me develop and to become a leader, to focus on the relationships like what we're talking about, to have a servant mindset, right, of what we call
Mhm.
servant selling at Southwestern Consulting, right? This is not transactional,
Yeah.
right? This is around the relationship idea, and that led to very high repeat clientele at car dealerships, which is difficult, and referrals at car dealerships, which is difficult. And then ultimately now, man, my wife, she cheers so loud for me, man, that I can't hear the naysayers. So she's out there helping me stay in my lane, stay focused, hold me accountable, call me out when I need called out,
Yep. Yep.
but to do it in a loving and graceful way like she does, man. She's amazing, and what she has done for me personally, right? And then how she helps me professionally, and to be able to go and, like you said, see people and meet people right where they're at. And
Yeah.
yeah, those are the four people that come to mind.
So, I think back to my days working on the farm when I was a kid, and one thing I know is like, so like if a tractor or a piece of farm equipment breaks down or something,
Hmm.
uh, you're not going to like call a mechanic or try to make plans to take it to the shop or whatever. You are going to get that equipment into the barn and you are going to get it fixed and get it back out in the field as quick as
Yes,
possible,
yes,
and so you end up becoming very resourceful as a kid because that you have to do that living on a farm or working on a farm, and
yeah,
so I think about that in my years growing up on the farm, and also work ethic, because sometimes there's parts. So I think of like at pea, like pea harvest time is when they harvest peas. It's like in August and stuff, and so in the spring you have to plant so many acres of peas each day because when they come harvest, they're going to harvest that many acres,
yeah,
and so you're on a strict planting schedule, and like I remember being out like way after dark planting peas in the field and stuff. I remember one time I'm on that pea planter, and he's driving the big 1086 tractor, and all of a sudden he stops. And I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like, go. And he's like, Kev, I ain't going nowhere. He's like, come up here and look at this. And that tractor, it was just buried we hit a spring and it just buried in the ground. And,
yeah,
and we had to go get another tractor and get it out there in the dark, get that tractor disconnected from the pea viner, get that thing back to, and just go around it and get the rest of the peas planted and stuff.
yeah,
And of course, that added a lot of time to our evening that night that we were already like, man, we just want to get this done and go to bed.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
but I bet you've got lots of experiences like that from growing up on a farm too and stuff.
Yes, yeah.
And
The resourcefulness, like you said, of it being able to adapt when needed, right? And again, it was good to have grandpa and dad for the guidance when things went wrong, because they're inevitably going to go wrong, right?
absolutely.
The equipment's mechanical, stuff's going to
Yeah,
break, things are going to happen, and to see them, to know they're frustrated when something happens because it could potentially derail the day, the week, if there's rain coming, whatever, but the way that they can control their emotions, to control everything, to keep it settled, and to go find the solution.
yeah, yeah, yeah. What is an example of a situation where you personally got to make a really substantial impact, and maybe it even surprised you a little bit, and you were just like, wow, look at what just happened there, But you also know that that would have never been possible if not for your relationship with any one of the people that we've been talking about here. What's an example of something like that where you were empowered in that way?
To where I could make an impact on somebody else's life.
Yes, yes.
Hmm. I think professionally, man, with Southwestern and just how we deliver what we do is offering complimentary what we call workshops and business action planning one-on-one, and to be able to see real time somebody's mindset shift of, oh my goodness, referrals is a big topic for what we discuss, right? And the importance of the relationships and the referrals. And I had a gentleman named Jeff that he runs a fitness company, online fitness
Okay.
coaching,
Okay.
and we got into referrals and how he could scale his business. And he just flat out said, Connor, I don't know why I've never thought to ask the people that are happy with me and getting results and what they're doing of who else that I can talk to that they know because they've seen firsthand of what I can do. So to see that real time brain, that lever flip, right? And go, oh my goodness, I can scale my business this way, but for that outside perspective, when maybe it's so close, that somebody from outside perspective
Yeah.
can take a step back and say, hey
Yeah.
man, what if,
Yeah.
right? And for him to grow his business that way is,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And you're right, just something that to us because of the experiences that we've had, it seems really simple to us. But to somebody who hasn't had the experiences we have, like he shared with you, I never thought of doing that.
Mm,
And it's incredibly valuable to them, and it can be life changing, not just for them, but for look at all the people that he now serves,
yeah.
that are impacted by that and stuff.
Yeah.
And and it's not even just the people coming to his gym, because as those people are coming to his gym and they're having the experience that they have and they're getting the kind of results, well, how many other lives, how's that impacting their lives with their spouses, with their children, because
Yeah.
they're just feeling way better and stuff. And so a lot of lives get impacted.
Yeah. The ripple effect is real.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation. For anybody that's listening to this and thinking, man, Kev, I really like Connor. Man, I love how he shows up. And maybe, you know what? Maybe it might be worth having a conversation with Connor about my thing, or maybe they're thinking of somebody else that like they're thinking like, you know what? I want to tell them about Connor. Any websites, any resources we can share with folks?
Yeah, so we have my professional page on Southwestern's website,
Okay,
and then also my LinkedIn page is my LinkedIn is the easiest way to get a hold of me. All
okay.
my contact information is on there. You can find everything, email, phone number. You can message me directly, and then I also post a lot of content revolving around basic principles that we do at Southwestern, so you can see more there.
Okay, so I'll make sure that we include those links with the show notes and stuff.
Awesome.
Any last thing that you feel led to share, Connor, before we call it a wrap?
I'd love to share a story that we were talking about the ripple effect.
Yeah.
And a couple weeks ago at church, our pastor was talking about the most famous man that you've never known, right?
Okay.
And I said, "All right, Pastor P, where are you going with this? What's going on here?" And he told a story about, I don't know the dates and time, but he told a story about where there was a tent revival going on, a preacher traveling the United States, and he was in one little town, and there was two young men that walked into the tent, and it was full. There was nowhere to sit. So they turned around and they said, "All right, but we're gonna go, and we're not gonna hang around for this. There's nowhere to sit." And there was an usher that saw them leaving, ran them down, said, "Hey guys, no, come on back. We'll make room. There's room for you in here. We'll make room." Shifted some people around. Things maybe were a little bit uncomfortable, but they came to know the Lord. And one of them, who name might ring a bell, was Dr. Billy Graham. So for
Wow.
for somebody, the usher was the most famous man that you've never known,
Mm.
but the ripple effect of, like you said, of yes, Jeff has these clients and the what he's doing for them is great, but what's that doing for his their kids,
Yeah.
their spouse, their confidence, and that ripple effect of what's going on, and the ripple effect of that usher just seeing those two young boys and inviting them back into the tent, and then the impact that Billy Graham had on the
Yeah.
world of
Yeah.
just seeing people where they're at and
Yep.
meeting people where they're at and just relationships, quality relationships, right? Of
Yes.
meeting somebody, meeting you, and how can we help each other versus what can I get from Kevin,
That's right.
right? Of how can we help each other and elevate each other and make an impact.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And and you're right. We never know who we're talking with, and I mean, so man, I was just, I mean, just show genuine appreciation for people. And I teach this regular because there's, no matter how successful somebody is, no matter how big a business they run, no matter how great things look from the outside looking in, there is not a person on the face of this earth that gets too much appreciation. We crave more appreciation. And so, when we are just genuinely appreciative of people, and we just let them know, and like, we see somebody that we maybe we follow, or we follow them, maybe they put a podcast out, maybe they put something else out on the internet or something, and we partake of that, and and we like, wow, that was really powerful, but we don't tend to reach out to that person, or we think that, like, they'll never see it anyways. And
Yeah.
yeah, I always say, do that anyways. Always show appreciation, and this would apply to, like, the gal serving coffee at the restaurant.
Yes.
Just be appreciative of people.
Yes.
And when we are just genuinely appreciative, I cannot tell you how many conversations that will lead to. And we just start having conversations like you're talking about with people, to just be able to give them the opportunity to feel seen, heard, and understood, and
Yes.
and just give them that gift. I will tell you, man, the right people just totally come our way. They are just so attracted to that because of just how they feel when they're around us. And
Yes.
it's so powerful, so
Yes.
powerful. And
Yeah.
so,
When we're feeling down, the president of Southwestern Consulting, Adam, said this at our global summit a few weeks back. When we're feeling down on ourselves, it's scientifically proven that when we start pouring into other people, telling people how awesome they are, what they're doing good, there's something that happens in our brain to where we start telling ourselves the same stuff and we bring ourselves up out of that.
yeah, yeah, for sure, for
It's
sure.
important to see people and pour into people.
Yeah. It's interesting because back in 2020, when COVID hit, there was a lot of my entrepreneur friends whose businesses got impacted really heavily from COVID and stuff. Others, they pivoted. I know I made a pivot during that time because I was doing a lot of live events, and I switched, and I started doing a lot of stuff on Zoom and stuff.
Hmm.
And but I can tell you that, of the entrepreneurs that went through that period, and it was a really difficult time. And I found myself talking with a lot of these entrepreneurs during that time. And one of the things that really came from that is that, what, when we are in service from us and service of others, there's no fear. We never feel fear when we are in service of others. And
Yes.
and so we just kind of had this thing. It's like, let's just focus on that. Let's focus on being in service of others, because that's what's going to really get us through this. And it did. It
Yeah.
absolutely did. And it was such a powerful lesson. And I mean, a lot of times it's through these difficult times that, man, that was some of the most valuable lessons are in those times. Not
Yes.
always the most enjoyable, but the most valuable if we take them,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Well,
hard to be nervous when your heart's on service.
yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Well, Connor, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation today. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you, and I'm excited to get this out there and share it with folks. So thanks so much, man.
Yeah. Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate you.
You bet.